Congolese government remains unsigned as Kinshasa balks at compromising with vanquished insurgents. Also, rights activists support calls for charges of immoral attire brought against a Sudanese woman who refused to cover her head to be dropped. And, armed only with the tools of his trade, a Malian artist hopes the message of reconciliation that inspires his work will go some way towards healing his troubled country. First up, chances that a political deal to end a bloody 18-month insurgency in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo further receded on Tuesday. Rebels and the government still haven't signed a peace deal that was due to be settled Monday night. The Congolese foreign ministers reportedly already left talks being mediated by Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni in Kampala. Well, Kinshasa has been less keen on negotiations since its military victory over M23 fighters last week. Many Congolese feel that they've already won and that there's no longer a need for compromise.
I don't see why we must sign a deal with a group of rebels, because we have won. We have proved to these people that we are stronger than them, diplomatically speaking, as well as in the field.
I think we should leave this as it is. It's clear. We asked for President Museveni's help, but President Museveni cheats us at every turn, and he's even afraid of speaking up.
Well, earlier I spoke to Thierry Verculon from the International Crisis Group. He tells us that the delay doesn't bode well for hopes of a diplomatic settlement.
I think it's not the first time that the Ugandan authorities announce that the parties are ready to sign an agreement, and it is not happening. There is quite a lot of unhappiness from the Congolese side about signing a peace agreement with the M23. First, the Congolese authorities don't want to sign something titled peace agreement with a movement that's been defeated on the battlefield and who is now hosted by foreign governments. And secondly, there is a very strong political opposition in the DRC to the signing of such an agreement. I understand that this is, of course, the official explanation, but the real issue may be the fate of the M23 leadership.
Now, the rebels themselves, they're scattered. Most of them are in Uganda, some may be in Rwanda, some are still in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you still think that they could pose a threat at this point?
Well, my understanding is that they are not anymore in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't think at this stage they are still a threat, and that's the reason why the DRC government doesn't want to sign a peace deal with them. But they could actually stay in Uganda and Rwanda and be used again in the future to start or to restart another armed groups in Eastern DRC. But even if an agreement was signed, this doesn't mean that this possibility would be ruled out.
Now, Thierry, Uganda has in the past been accused of supporting the rebels. Do you think that it is now fully committed to mediating a solution to this crisis?
Well, the problem is that the Ugandan mediation has been biased from the beginning because since December, they have been in touch with the M23 leadership when the negotiations started. And the Congolese authorities never openly denounced this till now. And now they're saying that the Ugandan authorities are really biased, and only a lot of pressure coming from the UN or the US could at this stage force the Congolese government to return to Kampala and sign something that cannot be really called a peace deal with the M23.
Thierry Verculon there speaking to us from Nairobi. In South Africa, at least 29 people have been killed in a car crash in Mpumalanga province in the east. 2 trucks are believed to have collided before slamming into a bus travelling in the opposite direction. Well, today, speaking to a crowd of distraught relatives of victims, the country's Deputy Minister for Transport said the loss of life had plunged the nation into mourning and called for the notorious road to be redesigned.
We are pained, and together with the families, I think as a country we are mourning the loss of life of 29 people, honest, innocent, coming from work, going to their families. And this can only be a tragic loss for the country, but a tragic loss for the family.
Egyptian authorities have been caught off guard after a court declared that a 3-month state of emergency expired on Tuesday, 2 days earlier than expected. The measure and an accompanying nighttime curfew was imposed in response to a wave of protests over the ousting of President Mohamed Morsi back in July. Well, the Interior Ministry had said the expiration date was on Thursday and planned to deploy security reinforcements onto the streets then. Authorities say they won't immediately implement the surprise lifting of the order until the Cairo Administrative Court formally notifies them of the decision. Now, the US State Department says that 2 American sailors kidnapped off the coast of Nigeria last month have been released. This is news just in. Authorities have declined to give details about how the pair were freed, but in the past, most kidnapped foreigners have been let go only after a ransom was paid. So we'll bring you more on that as we get it. A Sudanese woman could be flogged if she's convicted on charges of immoral attire. Amira Osman Hamed was arrested in Khartoum for refusing to cover her head whilst visiting government offices. Her case has drawn international criticism from rights activists.
Women's rights activist Amira Osman Hamed risks receiving up to 40 lashes. She explains why she's accused of immoral dress after an incident with a policeman in August.
He said, "I'm a man talking to you and you should cover your hair." I refused. He became angry and his colleagues threatened me and ordered me to put the scarf on my head. Otherwise, they would take me to the public order police. I told them that I would go with them to the police station, but I would not cover my hair.
Some lawyers say the public order law contradicts the constitution, which gives any citizen the right to live in dignity without fear of harassment.
The interpretation of Article 152 in the criminal law is wrong. It misunderstands the history of the Islamic principles in regard to dress, as there is nothing in Islam determining a certain type of Islamic dress.
In 2009, another woman, Lubna Hussein, spent a day in prison for wearing trousers, while others were given 10 lashes for the same reason. Sudan's laws governing morality took effect after the 1989 Islamist-backed coup by President Omar al-Bashir, and floggings are a common punishment in the country for crimes ranging from drinking alcohol to adultery.
Morocco set out the details of a promised policy that will give official papers to the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants from sub-Saharan Africa living within its borders. The kingdom's faced international accusations of institutionalized discrimination against unregistered foreigners. The new scheme will reportedly be rolled out over the next year, giving around 850 UN-recognized asylum seekers automatic residency. Others hoping to be considered will have to fulfill a list of criteria, including the number of years spent in Morocco, their employment record, and medical history. And finally, he shares the same name as the military captain who launched a coup that plunged Mali into its recent crisis. Well, artist Amadou Sanogo uses his abstract creativity to reflect upon his experience of his country's troubles and hopes that his paintings will add to calls for harmony.
Amadou Sanogo is considered as one of the most promising African artists of his generation. In his workshop in Mali's capital, Bamako, he uses abstract art to tell the story of his troubled country, which has been hit by a political crisis and brutal Islamist insurgency. Armed with only brushes and paints, he aims to fight narrow-mindedness and prejudice.
This is a country where all art is based in folklore. One time somebody asked me the question, what is the value of art in a country where people are struggling to eat? He forgot that not all nourishment is for the stomach. There is also nourishment for the mind.
In the past 10 years, Amadou has exhibited several times in France and Britain, and his work can fetch up to 10,000 euros abroad. That's far beyond the budget of most Malians, but Amadou says it's important that his works are also seen at home, particularly by the young, like here at the French Institute in Bamako. Artist Abdoulaye Konaté says Amadou stands out among his peers.
In his generation, I would say that for me, he's really the only constant in this type of work, continuing to push the boundaries. He's starting to find something, but I think he needs to produce another volume of work to reflect and set down a marker.
In February, Amadou will be exhibiting in his hometown of Ségou at the Niger River Festival. Organisers were forced to cancel the festival this year because of the country's civil war.
I speak of events, above all events that have touched Mali. But I don't have the same outlook as others. I'm not interested in blaming others. Instead, I ask myself, what happened to get me here? I ask this question because to blame other people is too easy.
In a country torn by conflict, with the government, Arab and Tuareg rebels all pulling in different directions, Amadou's art, at least, is a rare voice of reconciliation.
That wraps up Africa News for me, but I will be back with more in an hour, Laura.
Georgia, we look forward to it. As always, thank you very much indeed. And don't go away. Mark Owen will be here in just a few minutes with all the very latest on that catastrophic typhoon that hit the Philippines 5 days ago. The UN has asked for $300 million in aid. It's currently got only about 10% of that. Mark Owen will have all the latest on that story and much more for you coming up next.